right at the outset, I need to make a point that this is not about production. We're not suddenly unable to produce food. And one of the biggest inflations we've seen, as you know, in the last year is in fiber, specifically lumber. And it was interesting. The very like that lumber prices went up. I don't know what, like 3 times. I mean, like a threefold increase in like 3 or 4 weeks there. I happened to be down south doing a seminar at that time down in Louisiana on a great big pine plantation that the family had actually planted. Grandpa planted it, and this was going to be a family legacy. That was going to be harvested in 60 years, and have this big windfall, and prices, and the family was in jeopardy of losing their whole farm, their property, because the price had plummeted to almost nothing, from the trees that Grandpa had planted, while prices at the retail store were up threefold. There's plenty of lumber, plenty of timber, plenty of trees. This wasn't so you start digging and you say, well, what is this? And what it is primarily employment pressure. People, when people are paid more not to come to work than to come to work through the COVID largesse, then, well, I'd stay home too. All right. And so these mills, so the bottleneck is the mills. People haven't stopped raising trees, and people haven't stopped raising dairy cows or raising, wild rice. The bottleneck is in the employment and the supply chain thing. I mean, we're all familiar with the ships docked out of San Jose out in California, the hundreds of ships out there docked, and so the supply chain thing is real. I mean, I'm trying right now, Sina, to reprint Polyface Designs and Polyface Micro, the 2 latest books that we've done here. And there's been a true rush on them. And, I've published, more than a dozen books in my lifetime. And I've always been able to get them reprinted. I can call the printer and say, can you have these to me in like 30 days? It's kind of a 30-day out kind of thing, normal. Now we're looking at 4 months, 2.5 months. And so actually on our, just to give you an example of what's happening at our farm, a small farm, we are now realizing that we can't afford to do just in time, for example, egg cartons. We've always gotten them, 2 or 3 pallets at a time. They come out of Pennsylvania. And the last time we got them, what is normally a 1-week turnaround suddenly became a 1-month turnaround. Suddenly we've got all these eggs. We don't have anything to put them in. You can't put eggs on a tabletop. You got to put them in an egg carton. And so we're now looking actually at renting warehouse space in Stanton, about 8 miles away. We found some vacant warehouse space that we could rent so that we could buy a tractor trailer load of egg cartons or egg packing materials, just so we can have a much longer lag time. So when we see, we're like 3 months out, we can get some more. I just purchased a 2-year supply of sawmill blades. We have a sawmill, a band sawmill here on the farm. Those of you who've been here know that there's a big sign on it that says Joel's Man Cave. All right. And so we have this sawmill, we've always bought, 10 or 20 sawmill blades at a time. That's enough to last us a month. And when we run through those in a couple months, we just get some more. Well, we just bought sawmill blades enough to go for 2 years. because of these supply chain glitches. When I ordered this new reprint of the books, the printer said, "Yeah, we'll get them to as fast as we can, but we can't get paper." I mean, imagine something as ubiquitous as paper, and a paper printing company can't get paper. The other one says, well, their press foreman got COVID, and then they have all these protocols, and if people in one department, somebody gets COVID, then the whole department has to be out of work for 2 weeks while they quarantine. So now nobody's at the printer can do this work. So these I'm kind of just rattling off several of the very practical things that are going on as we wrestle with this. Well, so what happens then is when a company has to inventory larger stocks due to these glitches within the supply chain caused by a lack of ability to get labor, or because of COVID requirements that empty whole departments all of a sudden because somebody got COVID, so now the whole department empties for a week or two. Those kinds of structural inefficiencies within the system are putting pressure on costs, because you can't be inefficient and not recover those costs. And so while the technology of our of our systems have stimulated efficiencies for a long time, now we're dealing with these incredible inefficiencies that have to be look, the value of money. Look, if instead of being able to call for egg cartons a month at a time, we have to inventory a year's worth of egg cartons at a time, suddenly that check, instead of being a $2,000 check, is a $12,000 check. Well, that's money tied up in inventory that couldn't be spent on something else that we need today. And so all of that budgeting and all of that lag time, all of that that capital investment sitting out there to protect us from a glitch in the supply chain, all of that has to be recouped. That's money that's just sitting there in the system. It's not generating anything. It's not turnover. It's just there to protect us because of these supply chain glitches. So believe me, the production capacity is not driving these food costs. It's not suddenly that it's harder to raise a chicken or harder to make a hot dog or harder to, that's not the issue. The issue is much more endemic. It's much more business oriented, capital and commercial oriented than all of those kinds of things. And I can't help but mention the fact that when you dump trillions of dollars into an economy without any service or production to back it, those dollars are going to chase fewer goods. And so we're now seeing the results of trillions of just, I call it funny money, just funny money dumped onto the economy. And so, the economy hasn't, the productive economy has not expanded at the rate of government spending. And when government spending expands much faster than production and service, than true production and service in the economy, then all of that government money is going to chase fewer goods and services, which makes everything go up. So that's happening as well. That's a huge thing. So you've got a combination of numerous things here happening. I want our folks to understand is farmers are not going out of business. The soil hasn't, the sunlight has not quit growing plants, and cows are still eating grass, and trees are still growing just like they did 2 years ago. This is not a production issue. It is a process issue. It is after it is after production. And so, yes, it really does affect us. And then you say, well, so how do you decide, how much to go up, how much to do? And for a small farmer, we don't have a crew of bean counters to push the pencil for all these things. So we just kind of watch, what we're paying more for fencing, for fuel, for things. And we just have to follow that. We have to follow that bouncing ball. I'm afraid we're not immune to it.